Welcome to the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. Appreciate you for being here. Coming to you, oddly enough, on a Sunday. Normally, at this time, especially like around the noon hour when I'm recording this thing, we are knee deep into a game, into a Texans game. But as y'all know, the Texans don't play until Monday night. They are the Monday night football game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to talk about that game in just a second. I do want to lead the podcast by pointing out, just as a Texans, I should say this, as a Texas fan, as a fan of the University of Texas football, and a former student of Sam Houston State University, I got a game that I'm very much not looking forward to coming up next week because I don't have really any confidence in either team. Like, obviously, Texas is gonna steamroll Sam Houston State, as they've steamrolled the last couple of non-competitive opponents that they've had on the schedule since opening it up against the Ohio State Buckeyes, a game in which they, of course, lost. But they have not looked like anything close to a number one overall, like a top ranked team as they were coming into the season. That's the Texas side. And then the Sam Houston State side is a team that has not won a game yet, 0-3. And by my count, unless I'm doing math incorrectly, it looks like they've lost each and every one of their games so far by exactly 17 points. All three of their games. That's what I'm seeing. So that's not a great feeling. Uh, that's where I am as a college football fan. The school that I actually went to, that I've got such high hopes for, that I'm so excited about, and being having an FBS schedule now, being in an FBS Conference USA, something that I know that they've been working toward even back in the day when I was going to school there. This is something that they've wanted. They've wanted it at some point for conference realignment to benefit them. And then you go into this year, Casey Keeler's gone, but Phil Longo's been there before, and he's been calling plays across the country and doing his thing as an offensive coordinator. And this thing is just about to take off, you know. And unfortunately, the first few games of the Phil Longo era are not uh have not been great. Unfortunately, the first few games of the Arch Manning era at Texas have been, I think, even more alarming considering what the expectations were. Like, I'm sitting there watching that game. Y'all tell me. Let's just put this out there on the table. Based off of watching Arch Manning play 3 games so far, the first few games of this season. Is it 3 games? I think we're at 3 games now. Are you convinced that he's a good quarterback at all? Are you convinced that he's good at all? Not like I'm not trying to make him out to be terrible. Maybe he's not god awful, but I have I did this with previous quarterbacks. One of them was Trevor Lawrence, where everybody was telling me how this guy was generational and can't miss and just like incredible. And I was just trying to figure out, so where is that coming from? What am I not seeing? I see a capable player. I see a very, very good player, but I don't see generational can't miss. I remember thinking of that when the Trevor Lawrence hype was out there and not fully understanding it, other than the fact that he was, I guess, so good so young. And but with the Manning thing, it's more so of, hey, he's Peyton Manning and Eli Manning's nephew. He's Archie Manning's grandson, and he's a Manning, and he's been on the radar since he was. He's a bona fide prospect, and his name is Manning. This is gonna work out great. But when you watch him, you're like, okay, he's a pretty good athlete. He can make some throw, like he's capable of making throws, but he doesn't make throws consistently enough. Archman, and I'm talking about here, does not make throws consistently enough for me to fully understand how it is that he could be elevated as such a prospect, other than what we talked about on the previous episode. And that was the us falling victim to the algorithm. I think I call it the age of the algorithm. He's an algorithm quarterback because his name is Manning. He's famous before he ever even starts playing, and maybe that's part of it. But certainly from just watching them, my goodness, it is like so that touchdown throw that he throws to uh that he throws in the flat. Like his one touchdown pass. I think it was to Wingo. Um, right before that, he misses the running back in the flat, like wide open, easy throw, easy throw. Should have been an easy throw. Misses the running back in the flat. Why? Why? And how? How is he not making? And he just didn't look confident. Had a stretch there against UT. And I'm talking about the UTEP game, of course, on Saturday. Had a stretch there where he's got like 10 straight incompletions, including an interception sandwiched in between. Like he just does not look like a good player right now. And even my colleague at the Houston Chronicle, I like to call him my colleague as if that's what makes him an authority voice. But Kirk Bowles, who's been writing about Texas since the beginning of time, basically leads his piece today, his next day column, with, is it possible that Arch Manning is just not very good? This is the lead on Kirk Bowles' piece today in the Houston Chronicle. A troubled Longhorn Nation in all likelihood will wake up Sunday morning after a collective meltdown with one highly disturbing worry. Arch Manning just isn't that good of a quarterback. Now, he goes on to say, hold on, and unpacks the reasons why it's probably a little bit too early and unfair to be saying that. But that is definitely the feeling from watching him so far, that he's just another dude. Like this is not Colt McCoy. This is certainly not Vince Young. This is David Ash. This is Garrett Gilbert. This could very well right now, 3 games in, feels like just another dude. This is Casey Thompson. This is just another dude that played quarterback for Texas. That's how it feels. So I'm not excited about the game. I don't get conflicted when my worlds collide like this, when I view them to be on different levels. Like I went to Sam Houston State. I started rooting for Texas long before I even knew if I was going to go to college. Long before I really understood or could comprehend what college even really was. Maybe I was always going, but I didn't. I started rooting for Texas when I was like 9 years old, something like that. I hadn't even really thought about it. Now since then, of course, my school is Sam Houston State, so they're gonna play here pretty soon, and I'm gonna go into it. Never would have been conflicted because, like, what's there to be conflicted about? It's not like Sam Houston really has a shot to beat Texas. So like I can root for my school and like understand that they're not gonna win. There's just no issue there. But now I go into the game like wishing I felt better about either or both of them. You know, it's been a buzzkill start to the college football season for me as a Texas fan and as a former student at Sam Houston State that was hoping for more. So 10 minutes on college. Look, and since I talked about college football, I should point out too. I'm dogging Texas. I'm ignoring what Texas A&M did against Notre Dame. I should not. Very impressive, very impressive, and it's got me thinking like all this hype on Texas going into the season, and like they're not they're not the best. They don't feel like the best team. Forget the nation. Texas doesn't feel like anywhere close to the best team in the SEC. Okay. LSU looks better, and they don't necessarily look great to me. Georgia looked better. The Georgia Tennessee game was really good. They both look better. Um, That's Texas A&M looks better. Like they don't look they don't even look like the best team in the SEC. And to that point, since I mentioned Texas A&M, they don't even look like the best team in Texas. Imagine that. Longhorns going into the season ranked number one, top rated, top ranked, with a Heisman Trophy favorite at quarterback. He don't look nothing like a Heisman. They don't look nothing like even the best team in either their conference or state. Hate to see it. But yes, no, shout out to the Aggies. I ain't no hater. Shout out to the Aggies, man, having a having a pulse at least. Having a pulse at least. Texas is sitting here unworthy of even being number 7 because all 6 of those teams ahead of them are better. Ohio State, Penn State, obviously Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Miami, Oregon. Like everybody ahead of Texas looks like they deserve to be ahead of Texas. And let's see, I'm doing this actually. Let's see if the new rankings have actually come out. Doing this in kind of in real time here. Yeah, they bumped down. Okay, so they bumped down to 8. Florida State. Yeah, good for them. Good for Florida State. Yeah, bump Texas the hell down. Florida State really bringing up their real estate, their property value. But yeah, so let's get to the Texans. I just spent 10 minutes bemoaning and just hating where I am as a college football fan right now. But and we'll see how things play out. It's still very, very, very early. But this Texans Bucs matchup or Bucs Texans matchup, if you want to look at it technically, with Texans being at home, it's the home opener. It is so the first game at NRG Stadium this year. I expect it to be, especially between it being the home opener and the fact that I think Texans fans really remember the last time these two teams played because it was like a little bit of a coming out party for CJ Stroud, coming out party for Tank Dell. The way they ended that game, that how they executed that final drive to win the game, outduel Baker Mayfield. It was just an incredible game, an incredible moment. And of course, they go on the next week to beat Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. And it was like, oh, okay. CJ Stroud, who had been really honestly had been playing well leading up to that point anyway. It was like, oh, this thing that they got going on in Houston is the real deal. Like 2 years ago, beating the Bucs at home was like the genesis of people kind of taking notice of the Texans. And now it is like the rematch of that, or kind of just taking you back to that moment now, roughly 2 years later. But the difference is that, of course, they're running the Texans anyway, are running a different offense than they were running at that time. There is no Tank Dell. Hell, there is no. There are a lot of questions about the Texans' weaponry outside of Nico Collins, and then the fact, which we'll get to in just a moment, the fact that in their first game of the season, they seem to either de-emphasize Nico Collins or successfully allow the Rams to successfully uh, kind of take him out of the game, which cannot, based on how this team is built, looking at their personnel, talk about their passing game, that just cannot be an option. Nico Collins is healthy and good to go. You got to be throwing him the ball on purpose. That's just the fact. And so there are, I think, real questions about, like how they attack things in the first game and how they're going to respond in this game. And that's different from, hey, going down there and a game winning touchdown drive in the last minute of the game. Like the shine has worn off on that moment from 2 years ago, and now there's the focus on what they have been over the past year and how honestly how pitiful things look offensively in that first game. Not scoring a touchdown, not scoring any points in the second half, not targeting Nico Collins more than 5 times in the game. Like that just cannot be. So how am I looking at this game? Start with the offense, since that was the big issue for the Texans in the first game, and I do have some thoughts on the defense that I will just want to put out there. But offensively, the thing that worries me most about the passing game is number one, how well they can hold up and protect with the strength of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense being up the middle. Like they have a very strong front, and even beyond that, they are very aggressive with blitzing. Even though they weren't in this first game that they played against the Falcons, which they won on the road, and the rookie Emeka Ibuka with the game-winning touchdown. The defense, however, was not like super aggressive with blitzes against Michael Penix and the Falcons, but we know how Ty Bowles and crew gets down. So they got really, really good players up the middle. Y'all are familiar with Vita Veda, who they say is 350 pounds. I have heard tech players on the Texans following that game, offensive linemen who said that it has to be 400 pounds. Like he was that massive to them up close and blocking him 2 years ago. They think that is a 400-pound man, despite him being listed at 350 pounds. He's an issue, okay, both in all contexts, because he's just such a massive human who moves so well to be that size. That's the strength of their defense in the middle, or their front in the middle. And like that to me is a clear distinction, a clear difference between how this team is built and how the Rams were built, where the strength of the team was mostly on the edges. Honestly, they were strong all the way around, but there was so much attention and focus and thought about Jared Verse on the edge. In this game, I'm concerned about Vita Vea, excuse me. That is really Vita Vea, y'all pardon me. Him up the middle and this interior offensive line having to figure that out. Okay. In the first game, there was no Ed Ingram. That caused them to do the musical chairs on the offensive line. I didn't like it, but I understood it. And I'm not gonna like spend no time here pouting about that. They get to decide what they think their offensive line should look like. But this game is not gonna necessitate that same type of musical chairs. They should have the rookie Ariante Ursery at left tackle, Titus Howard at right tackle, and Ed Ingram looks like he's good to go at right guard. So everything's cool there. But they do lose their center, Jake Andrews, who went down with an ankle injury. And it's really tough, man, watching how fans react to an injury. Like this dude gets injured later in the game against the Rams last week. And we got people, I'm posting on the social media accounts, the social media channels that I'm in charge of, and I'm seeing people that are like, "Yo, man, he wasn't good anyway. Good riddance," kind of thing. I'm like, man, they just barely got into the game. Like maybe he has a couple bad snaps here or there, but like he was already ready to throw this dude away. And I don't know if it's because they feel like he's a teacher's pet and didn't really earn his job, or if there's some resistance for guys with Patriot backgrounds and connections to Nick Caserio or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the thought is, because I mean, this guy hadn't even this Nick Caserio was with the Texans by the time Jake Andrews got in the league. I know he's connected uh, to Cole Popovich, and Popovich is connected to Nick Caley, and Nick Caley's connected to Nick Caserio, and you can do that. But like, I felt bad for Jake Andrews, and people was like, already good riddance on him, But all of that to say, the offensive line might feel good about Jared Patterson stepping in, but they are still a little bit shorthanded from how they exactly want to be, and they're shorthanded up the middle, and they're bringing back a guy who had been injured, had an abdomen injury. Like imagine that, Ed Ingram. Hey, Ed, how's the abdomen feeling? Oh, it's pretty good. All right, man, we need you to get in there and check Vita Vea. Like, damn, that's not the ideal way to ease in the abdomen injury. So I'm concerned about that. I am definitely concerned about that. So I would say honestly, watch out for the matchup on the interior for the Texans interior offensive lineman against the Bucs interior defensive lineman. I think is going to be honestly a key to the game. And that is when we talk about the Texans offense, that to me is both in terms of the passing game and the running game. In terms of the passing game, like if they can't protect CJ Stroud, and the pocket is messy, and there's nowhere for him to step up to. Like that was a criticism of CJ Stroud last week. Was like, man, when the pocket got a little bit hairy, there was room for you to step up the middle, and you took a sack or two, or like it looked like you might have bailed from the pocket or didn't see like where you were supposed to go. Like that, even if that's a valid criticism of him in the last game, man, the issue is gonna be right up in his face. The problem is gonna be right up in dude's face in this game. So they got a hell of a task from the passing game standpoint. And then of course, like I mentioned, like this Nico Collins thing. Let's just forget it happened and fix it. Like let's move on from the whole we only targeted Nico Collins 5 times in a game, in a game where we don't have Christian Kirk, in a game in a season where Stephon Diggs is gone, Tank Dell is still hurt. Like, yo, uh, forget it. Forget it happened. Don't do it again. Let's target Nico Collins early and often. Those are the important parts. Protect specifically up front, or I'm sorry, in the middle, in the interior of the offensive line. Get the ball to Nico Collins. Okay, that's the passing game. The run game is a similar issue though, because the Bucs are also, in addition to being really strong in the middle or up the middle, and being really clever with their blitz packages in the run game, they are just really savvy with their reads and their tails, and their keys. Like they are able to pick up, and they did this against Atlanta on some of the tails in their run game where they were shading their run plays, and they were always, not I'm going to say always, but they were normally where they were supposed to be. This is a hard, I'm saying all that to say this is a hard team to run the ball against, specifically between the tackles. Now, this is why I point this out with the Texans and why it's interesting to me. We saw throughout the week, probably even earlier in the week, that D'Amico Ryans mentioned, I think he was asked about this, but he did mention maybe feeding Nick Chubb a little bit more of an emphasis on Nick Chubb in the run game. Let's look at this for a second. I might have the, I don't know if I have the stats here in front of me from earlier. Let's see. This is what it looked like. Okay, and this is interesting to me, where we say go feed Nick Chubb more. I know a lot of us complained about Dari getting the ball late in the game, Damian Pierce getting the ball late in the game. What is all of that about? And we hear D'Amico Ryans talking about how Nick Chubb is gonna get the ball more or whatever. Man, Nick Chubb had 13 carries for 60 yards against the Rams. No other running back had more than 3. You got 5 carries for CJ Stroud. A couple of those, if not all of those, are scrambles, right? You're not doing too many design runs with CJ Stroud. So just take him out of the mix. And it's Nick Chubb with 13 carries and everybody else with 3 or 2. 3 carries for Damian Pierce, 3 carries for Woody Marks, 2 carries for Darian Gumbawale. They did, and I'm saying that to say they did feed Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was the emphasis. They feel like he need to be the emphasis even more. Like when they say get a ball more to Nick Chubb, does that mean like Damian Pierce goes from 3 to 1 or none? Same thing with Woody Marks. Does that mean Daria Gumbawale goes from 2 to 1 to none? And what is going up to close to 20 for Nick Chubb? Like, and I don't disagree with the notion that they're probably better off giving the ball to Nick Chubb. I don't like that being the state of affairs where you're a week in and you've already lost confidence in the Damian Pierce, Woody Marks, Daria Gumbawale combination. I ain't saying that they're wrong. I'm saying that freaking sucks. That sucks. because I like Nick Chubb on the team so long as they ain't have to try to run him into the ground the way they did with Joe Mixon last year. I don't think you can treat these older running backs like that, even if they are excellent. Joe Mixon, excellent football player, but man, the dude is a human being. He's played a lot of football. I hate how they ran him into the ground last year and didn't have no confidence in the other running backs. And maybe that was justified, but it freaking sucked. I hate right now that they got Nick Chubb, who is not necessarily the Nick Chubb that we all remember, but still appears to be a very, very good football player. But they're gonna have to run him into the ground like he's 22 years old, and he's not. He's not. Like he didn't have two serious injuries in back-to-back seasons, and he's trying to recover and get back into the swing of things. That is what's happening. A running back like that, you maximize by having a committee, by having other running backs that you can trust. And they don't have that after 1 week. Man, that sucks. Now I still like Woody Marks. I'd like to see, and this is my thing too about the running game. Okay, talked about the Bucs defense being strong at the middle, them being really good with their keys, reading their keys, and sniffing out and defending the run between the tackles. You want to get a ball more to Nick Chubb, very good football player, but what's Nick Chubb great at? Running between the tackles. Who do we feel like this matchup advantage is in favor of? The Bucs interior defensive line against the Texans interior offensive line going up against just Nick Chubb. Apparently, mostly Nick Chubb. I don't love it. I don't love it. If you use the Atlanta game as any kind of scouting point, you'll see that Tampa was very, very good at that. The Falcons even ran between the tackles for whatever reason, ran between the tackles more so than they normally do, and paid the price for it. Or at least it did not. I shouldn't say paid the price sounds drastic because that's not really necessarily what lost them the game, but it did not work. I say that. I don't want the Texans to repeat that. They very well could, given what their stated identity is, and honestly, who their personnel is. They trust Woody Marks and Nick Chubb and Damian Pierce to run more stretch plays. Doesn't sound like that's what they want to do. Sound like they want to run it up the gut, run it between the tackles, push. Good luck pushing that big old sun gun Vita Vea. So there's that. The defense, I don't have to be long on this, man. The defense needs to. I think, despite holding the Rams to 14 points and overall playing a good enough game for the Texans to win, if they had anything going on offensively, they were not the reason that they lost that game. They still did not, in my view, play up to the standard that I think that they're supposed to have, or to the level that I think they're supposed to be. Right. The way that I've been talking about their defense, and the way that I still, in this moment, as I talk about their defense, view them, I think that this should be somewhat of a redemption game, and they got a hell of an opportunity to do it because Baker Mayfield makes plays, keeps his eyes downfield, is not afraid to hold on to the ball, not afraid uh, to make plays with his legs. Nick Caserio, when he was talking with Texans All Access, referred to him as one of the better quarterbacks in the league, despite the fact that he's not really talked about in that way. And I could not agree with Caserio more about that point. You know, it's so funny. And Caserio's from the Cleveland area. I wonder if deep down he's really still a Browns fan, despite the fact that he runs the Texans and competes against the Browns and all of that. Like he's from that area, and has to be very aware of how the Browns screwed that up. I think about this almost every time I watch Baker Mayfield. A couple of things I think about: that random ass Rams game that he played, after he let go from Carolina. like he's had such a weird little road to get here to Tampa Bay, where he does the Carolina thing and he does the Rams thing, and he had that moment. Was it a Thursday night game? It was a night game. It was a hell of a game. And so I think about that, how random that was. Remember that night where Baker Mayfield was the quarterback for the Rams and he was awesome? And then the fact that the Browns got rid of him because they didn't think they were good enough with him. They thought they needed to be better, and that leads to them trading for Deshaun Watson in one of the worst transactions in probably professional sports history. Forget the NFL. The Deshaun Watson trade, at least on the Cleveland side, is going to go down as one of the worst transactions in the history of professional sports. And they got rid of Baker Mayfield so that they could make that transaction essentially. And so the irony in the fact that they did that, and they have not. They go to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. Got beat by the Texans, funny enough, but they have not had a quarterback anywhere near as good as Baker Mayfield since they let go of Baker Mayfield. Where would the Browns be right now? Where could they be? Where could they have been? What could have been for them if they had actually stuck with Baker Mayfield, who, they said they needed an adult in the room. I don't know, man. Maybe you actually needed whatever the hell Baker Mayfield is. If he ain't an adult, I don't know if he's an adult. I don't know what he is, but I know he's a damn good quarterback and better than anything that they've had. That's what they needed. I think about this all the time, or at least every time I see him play, and we'll think about it often when I'm watching him at NRG. But that's the key. Like, keeping Baker Mayfield in check is going to be really difficult. He is very, very good. Okay, just going back and watching that Atlanta game, man, he is very, very good, and he has the requisite weapons. Like, I would say going into this game that I would take Tampa's weapons if I'm just looking at Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka. They got Sterling Shepard over there who's been around for like a decade. Uh, used to play for the Giants. He's been around forever. It's just like random watching him in motion. I'm like, oh damn, that's where I forgot Sterling Shepard is there. And then their running backs are really good options out of the backfield. Like, I would take their weaponry right now with the Texans not having Christian Kirk. All right. And the rookies are coming along. They'll figure it out, but like they're just not there yet. I would honestly take the Bucs weapons over the Texans, even though I feel like the Texans have the best receiver in Nico Collins. The Bucs' best receiver is Mike Evans, who's basically kind of Nico Collins before Nico Collins, and just older than him now. So I take that with Emeka Ibuka and these damn running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And honestly, Baker Mayfield, the gamer. I'm not saying I take him over CJ Stroud, but with that combination, Texans got a lot to prove, man. Obviously, the offense didn't score no touchdowns, 9 points, not good. Nothing in the second half. And the defense just, stingy enough to not only to not give up more than 14 points, but let there be explosive plays by the Rams. And Baker Mayfield is very much capable of the explosive play. If you need any evidence, just watch him and Emeka Ibuka win the game at the end against Atlanta last week. So I did want to mention before I get out of here that and I want to shout out Jonathan Alexander from the Houston Chronicle for including me in the Chronicle's staff predictions. I'm not like a sports writer at the Houston Chronicle, right? My job is more on the broader editorial side, and it's like, content strategy, headlines, newsletters. I'm not a byline writer per se outside of the newsletters. I'm not really reporting on the Texans or reporting on anything specific as a reporter at the Houston Chronicle. So like, I don't even really be thinking about being added into stuff like that. And Jonathan hit me up and wanted to include me in the staff predictions Because obviously I do some stuff with the radio, and there's a little bit of respect for what I might have to say about the Texans, and so I want to shout him out, but also shout out the Houston Chronicles overall Texans coverage, staff coverage, of course, Sports Radio 610 as well, doing the pregame and postgame show. Man, that's gonna be hell. Sean Pendergast. Let's shout out Sean Pendergast, who's gonna do the pregame show. And I don't have a run sheet right now in front of me for how long that postgame show is gonna go. But whenever we do them night games, man, I mean, we normally still run at least a couple hours, 3 hours after the game is over with. The night is not going to end before midnight for Sean Pendergast, who has to do the morning show the next morning at 6 a.m. So, man, I'm not going to be all up in this business and ask exactly how or try to speculate on exactly how that workflow is going to be. But Sean's got a motor on him, man, and it's about to get real on Monday night. It's about to get real. I'm hoping that the Texans prove me wrong, but I have made a prediction, and the prediction is that the Texans lose. All right. Now I got the Texans losing barely. Got them losing by 3. Bucs 20, Texans 17. I want to be wrong. Look, I thought the Texans was going to win against the Rams, and I was wrong about that. So hopefully I'm wrong 2 weeks in a row. And they do actually win this game, and they don't start the season 0-2. But I'm afraid that that's going to be the case. The Bucs just quite frankly look like a much more impressive outfit in their season opener albeit against a Falcons team that is not as good as the Rams. But on the road with, I think the Falcons playing pretty good. I thought the Falcons played pretty good. Bucs hung in there and won the game at the end. Looked a lot better doing it than, of course, the Texans, who could not score a single point in the second half and could not get in the end zone at all. Offense cut out them penalties, man, and they can protect up front, like in the middle. This thing should look a little bit different. We'll see, though. Hoping for the best. Shout out to y'all for listening, man. Look, I think that it's important to point out that this show, if you're listening, audio only, is one that you can find on YouTube. Check it out on YouTube. It's on podcast. Watching on YouTube. There's also an audio only option wherever it is you prefer the podcast. Wherever you're listening, podcast platforms, and just make sure you're subscribed and jump in the comment section if you catch us on YouTube. Helps with the podcast, helps with placement, helps with all of those amazing things. We got a lot of other stuff to get into when it comes to the Texans, beyond just the field, man. So I'm looking forward to talking to y'all this week. This is just to get ahead of the game, but we will react to the Monday night game. And soon enough, I'll see y'all. Until then, y'all be good. From Hiram Club, Beast got 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 from Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do it, do the Hiram Club, do